Okay, we're going to start. Very briefly, we're starting just on time, I think. See, this is where I destroy everything, and we have to spend half an hour doing it. So we are, there's a range of fascinating papers today. I'm just going to give a brief overview before we deep dive into them. So, and in some way or other, the papers that we're going to hear from and the researchers we're hearing from sort of gravitate us towards the same hard question. What does it really mean to put communities in the loop meaningfully and not as subjects of AI systems, but as co-creators, stakeholders, and governors? And they take us through a range. We're going to hear about a range of fascinating contexts where AI use and deployment has been particularly fraught and impactful. And in very different ways, they encourage us to learn from collective organization and the collective thinking that may offer us new pathways and conditions for AI use. And as I read them, these are very much case studies in how communities can become front and center in the design and governance of AI infrastructures. So these researchers are all buyers aware when it comes to community participation in AI governance. They recognize and in fact, in many ways dissect the structural power imbalances within this dynamic and shifting context. But they give us hope, impetus, and I feel inspiration to commit to experimental and long-term ethical and relational work, and for us all to use the tools at our disposal from theory, from empirical research and practice that can rebalance power dynamics in ways that suit the people that they serve. So Mika, her paper today is going to draw insights from research and practice-based knowledge from within the creative sector to propose a framework for participatory governance, a framework which integrates stakeholder dialogue, community evaluation, and transparency principles to ensure AI systems in art, production, and curation remain inclusive. Then we're going to go to Shruti, who will move us into very high stakes humanitarian contexts where crisis affected communities have become extraordinarily vulnerable to AI deployment, asking what community in the loop could really mean here in these very precarious and difficult conditions. And finally, Himanshu, today we will hear from at the end, who will consider algorithmic failures and content moderation as a generative ground for participatory development. So we're going to, without further ado, we're going to move first to Mika. We're going to take, if you could log your questions as we go along, and we will try to correspond them all at the end. I will be sitting in the front, and it's my job to keep us to time. I was really terrible at that online yesterday, so I'm going to be ruthless today. Okay, over to you, Mika.
Hello, nice to meet you. I'm Mika. Thank you for having me in India. It's my first time to come here. Very nice to meet you. 3 years ago, a colleague told me AI is just a tool. It's neutral. Only people matters. Then I believe him at the moment. But time goes by. I watched on national museums, started AI digital analytics, and the system started deciding which artworks is the important, not because of the bad intention, because of the algorithm. So then I realized AI does not only create culture, AI govern the culture. So today we are building the AI governance system without artist communities or diplomatic policy plan. So that's what I want to talk about today. Why it didn't? I think this one is this button.
Try it.
Yes. Okay. So my work sits intersection policy and culture. On policy side, I advise National Assembly and Minister of Culture, and I sit committee AI governance committee. It's the only voice, cultural voice among engineers, full of engineers. it's a big problem. And the practice side, I created AI art through the experimental art space bar, which is space bar. And also I direct digital ethical artworks through Neo Art globally. And these two different words taught me key lesson. Policy without culture is blind, and culture without governance is vulnerable. That's and my task is combine and connect two different words. Okay. It's the
It's still not working.
yes. Oh, okay. Slowly. Okay. Yes. A bit difficult posture. This one is okay? Okay. So 2024, Korea invested AI infrastructure billions dollars, but less 2% went to culture sector. Museums, archive, and heritage, almost invisible in national AI strategy. But it's not only Korea problem, right? It's worldwide. So UNESCO warned that central diversity must be at the AI governance. But we are building AI hardware without software, cultural software. This is not technology problem. This is governance vacuum. Okay, let me try. Why? Very. Okay, okay.
I say.
Okay. So most institutions still think AI is just a creative tool. This model is already dangerous. Infrastructure shape society, roads shape the cities, electricity shape the industry, AI shape the imagination. So in new model, AI is infrastructure, culture governs AI, institutions also meaning, communities set the logic, define the purpose. Museums are not just the stewards of objects, we are museums governors of imagination system. Okay. I'm accustomed. So people ask, will AI replace artists? Commonly ask like that, but that's not real risk, I think. Real risk is the studies told 68% of AI generated images reproduce Western aesthetics. It even when put prompts for non-Western cultures. When I asked to AI the tool, asked to generate the Korea wedding, it mixing the Korean, Japanese, and Chinese symbols. So this is not malice, this is statistics. AI erase culture quietly through average. And when AI creates memory, probability, the statistics become history. So Korea is like this number AI global leader, but culture was excluded, totally excluded from AI governance. Engineers dominate the AI committees and meetings, AI strategy meetings, and creative sectors had no seat. Museums, the result is like this. Museums projects, there's the project failed and smart museums became fragmented and culture still excluded from AI policy design. Okay, so I propose this framework. First layer is meaning. is the humane domain. So communities and creators and define the value and purpose. And this is cultural brief, not a prompt. And second layer is form, is AI domain. It AI executes within human defined limit because AI just randomly choose through the generated and trained that images. So human have to control it. So AI is just instrument, not author. And third layer is context, is the governance dominant. Institutions audit, validate, and take responsibility. I think it's important AI executes human author and institutions govern. Okay. So Korean Museum 2025 digitalized Joseon era dynasty ceramics. Instead of scanning and uploading, historians and descendants communities define the meaning first, and then AI used only verified Korean data set. Communities and scholars validate the output. This took weeks, of course, takes the time. Always the AI generated thing is quick, it's just made by seconds, but it took a time, but it produced trust. It's very important. This is governance, not prompting. So in 2026, actually 1 month ago, the British Museum made the issue. The British Museum posted AI image mixing Asian and indigenous symbols. No cultural brief, no curatorial review, no accountability. Trust collapsed in hours. It was not tech a failure. This is the governance failure. Now look at what governance produced. In Korea, AI helped restore royal tomb ceramics. Governance was built from day one. The only verified Korean specific data set used, and historians and descendant communities select the data logic and design the data logic, and cultural audit required, and human decision traceable. Community credits as a co-author. So results, 3 times faster restoration without losing cultural accuracy. And in 2025, 87% of AI culture projects were redesigned in Korea after biased assessment. This case represents governance make innovation trustworthy. So heritage is irreversible, right? So you cannot undo cultural distortion. This is why heritage is the best AI governance laboratory. The Iberian Boxer project was a success because human control the data and validation. But on the other hand, the British Museum AI post incident was failed because there's no governed by human credit. So my conclusion is if governance works in heritage, because heritage is very complicated to choose and pick, right? If governance works in heritage, it works in law, medicine, and another public sector. In the world, most important AI governance laboratory, I think, is heritage. So AI ethics everywhere. But conference produce principle, UNESCO make the framework, and governance sign the declaration. But ethics without operation is theater. HC, human-centered AI methodology, into daily practice, there's, four pillars. Okay. 4 pillars: data set and community consolidation and accountability and hidden AI discovery. So most of most of institutions already use AI very often. Digital analytics collect the search and comment recommendation. You cannot govern what you cannot see. So if your institution's board cannot answer these questions, you govern by AI, not you govern to the AI. So my question is, where does AI already influence on, and who define the meaning, and how intent documented, and what value guides to use, and who accountable. So AI model today are trained on Western data. Indian, Asian, and Global South cultural risk becoming statistical minority. But foundation models are make trained now. Institutions that today can input the cultural sovereignty into AI governance infrastructure. That's present decision and urgent decision. So AI will be everywhere, trust will not. So meanings cannot be automated, responsibility cannot be outsourced, and governance is cultural design. My last question is whether AI shape the culture, who shape the AI? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mika. Please make sure that you record and note your questions so we can come back to them at the end. And we're going to move on now, I believe, to Shruti. There we go. Oh, here we are. Okay. Thank you so much. Can I see and speak? Now I can see my speaking. Oh, okay.
I think there should be a presenter mode in there.
There needs to be, but okay, I need to change the mirroring. Just a minute. Just a second.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. I'm going to be talking today about how we address power dynamics in participatory AI, especially in crisis communities, in humanitarian contexts, and how do we talk about that? I'm going to be sharing the findings from two studies that the CDAC network, who I'm representing today, looked at. One in Kenya, in the Kakuma refugee camp, and the other, which is ongoing in Sudan, working with ERRs, with national and INGOs to think about how AI can be used in an information warfare environment. So very briefly, we tested AI participation approaches in two very, very different contexts. In Kakuma, Kenya, we worked with 192 displaced persons within the refugee camp in December 2024, roughly. These are largely people who've been displaced from South Sudan, Uganda, Somalia, and who have very limited mobility outside of the camp, right? In Sudan, we've been working on multiple engagements since 2024, largely with emergency response rooms, with NGOs who are based in Sudan and are providing services in a very high risk humanitarian environment, and also a Sudanese network that's based out of Sudan, right? People who have left the country but still have networks within the country and who are very invested in building humanitarian systems that can serve within the conflict environment. Both studies used co-design workshops, local facilitation, iterative feedback processes. What we basically wanted to understand across, sorry, I feel this is, yeah. Can you hear me? Is okay. All right. Across both studies, what we wanted to understand is how do communities experience participation in AI systems? What is that process like? The first major finding that I really want to look at is the participation gap. Across both studies, there was high AI optimism. I believe in the Kakuma study, almost 88% of responders believed that AI could be used for better service delivery in healthcare, in education, in providing services to the refugee camp itself. But what they did have is a much more nuanced understanding of technology, both in the opportunities and risks that it presented. What is really fascinating to me is in that both the articulation was that communities wanted influence, not just to give their input to, in certain feedback focus group discussions. What does influence look like and not just input? There's a recognition that there is, when people want to do participatory models, there is a system that is present to collect voices through surveys, consultations, focus groups, different methods that exist. But those systems don't really transfer power, right? They collect feedback, but they leave very limited decision authority for those who are giving that feedback. And what was clear is that communities want to change that. They want to shape the decisions, not just inform them. One thing that I did want to emphasize is these are similar lessons across contexts. These two studies engage with very, very different groups. Like I said, in Kakuma, these were largely displaced persons who had very limited mobility and very high dependence on the humanitarian actors who were facilitating these focus group discussions, right? So there was an inherent dynamic on also saying what they believed that humanitarian actors wanted to hear. In Sudan, we're working with a very mobilized responder network that is inbuilt into the humanitarian system, but not necessarily as I'm searching for the right word, but not necessarily as beholden to it, right? So these are people who are very aware of the impacts of information warfare, whose communities have faced the physical risks of delivering humanitarian work, and who are not afraid to push back certain narratives that might be emerging from the international humanitarian network. So very different populations, very different types of crises, different constraints, but the power disparities that were identified were nearly identical. So what I want to leave is this idea that this isn't necessarily a context issue, but a system design issue, not just in AI systems, but how we imagine participation in general. So I'll talk about 3 lessons from these design exercises. Obviously, like all good presenters, I will talk only in threes through the slides. First, that AI systems are designated to scale at large numbers, right? We want more voices, we want more data points, we want to include more voices. But they're not designed to scale the power of participating communities. So what does this mean? So as you scale technology, you say this technology is across different districts, across different countries, but you also deliberately preserve the power that the communities have in those technologies that are scaled. So a technology that is scaled in Kakuma, will it look very, very different to a technology that is scaled in Bihar in India, right? And does scale just mean using the same technology in the same way across different districts, contexts, countries? Or can we also scale to conserve community power, to shape these decisions and to shape the tools? Second, participatory models, even when they're designed for equal input. So that means, I'm sure all of us have been part of these conversations. You want to make sure there's a gender balance, that you have people of different castes, different religions, different languages represented, right? We've all been in these conversations, but they're not designed for unequal influence. So just because you've created a channel for equal input where everybody can potentially come into the same room and speak, that doesn't mean that they share the same influence, right? And third, and I mean, equally, this is a learning process at the CDAC network for us, which is that communities are engaged, their feedback is gathered, but systems are not built for their power to be decisive, right? Is there a place in which it says the community input is binding, that they have veto authority? They can say, hey, we don't want AI, or we don't want to procure it from XYZ company, right? Do we have that? And those are uncomfortable conversations for all of us, because what does that say about our own power within the system? Okay. Now, one thing that I do want to say is that what I've told you so far is an experience that a lot of us might have had, right? I think this, in a way, I'm preaching to the choir. We're all here at the PAIRS conference. We're not at the main summit. So we are already built in to the idea that some sort of participation, inclusion needs to be there. But what I want to briefly talk about is moving away from inclusion to power, right? And how do we design to change power and to change influence? And I'm going to talk about this approach called community in the loop, an approach that centers power, accountability, and agency, and moves away from equity and inclusion alone, because we sort of see what the flaws of focusing on that alone are. One thing that I do want to say is these are not aspirational values, right? These are design requirements. So we need to design for them intentionally from the beginning, and not just an aspirational value that highlights our donor report, so to speak, off the record. Yeah. Huh. Yeah. So redesigning for power. Again, in threes. First, that we must architect decision authority into participation systems, right? So what we want is for communities to govern and not just consult, when a whole range of important decisions have already been made in DC, in Delhi, in New York, right? So what this means is that we don't consult the community after all these decisions are made, and we have 2 design workshops that we take photographs of, that we talk a lot about, but don't actually change decision making in itself. What this means is identifying steps at which influence can be the highest and making sure that participation occurs at that step. And we are very aware of what the decisions that this participation can actually change are, right? If it cannot change major decisions, if it cannot change decisions around, say, procurement, then also to document that and say, okay, that is not what the ambit of this participatory model is. Second, measure influence transfer, not just feedback volume, right? What this means is to stop saying how many people did we engage. At the very first slide, I said we spoke to 192 people in Kakuma refugee camp, right? So that isn't the metric that we may want to note it, but that isn't the success metric, right? We want to start asking, how much influence did we transfer? Did the communities feel like they have binding authority over certain decisions? Did we communicate that well? And can we see that in the work that is moving forward? This requires that we embed participation where influence is highest. So this includes at the time of procurement, at the time of deployment decisions are made, when there are escalation moments, moments of scaling, whether within the same community or across different communities, when we're exiting, right? How do we exit? What are these decision gateways that are of most influence? And then can we build participatory mechanisms at those moments of influence? Third, design for power asymmetry from the start. So in Kakuma, what became obvious, and obviously because a lot of us didn't speak the local language and didn't have the communities of trust, which was spoken about in the previous presentation, right? We worked on a lot of local intermediaries to facilitate those conversations. But what sort of power imbalances does that set up? Being open, transparent, and accountable for that is really important. Not power brokering is not neutral, right? Engaging local intermediaries is not a neutral process. So accounting for how power shifts in those moments is really important. Okay. So this is my last slide. And what I want to focus on is the community in the loop approach. I don't know how many of you were there in yesterday's online session, but my colleague Susie spoke about the safe AI guidance that CDAC Network is developing along with FCDO and the Alan Turing Institute. And the focus there, it's a wonderful but complicated guidance document, right? Which is talking about different actors, different audiences. But there is a module in that where we're talking about communities and how to build participation and power shifting for communities. Participation is embedded at decision points, not bolted on. That human judgment is not replaced. We want to understand how, what is the context? Was there dissent? Were there harm signals that were noticed there? So we don't automate the judgment process itself. And lastly, that governance that protects community agency under scale. right? So are we building rules and regulations? Sorry, there's something here which I've said to myself, note to self, expand on this, and I'm wondering what did I mean when I wrote that, but that aside. So with that aside, can crisis-affected communities say no or stop when something is harmful? Is that possible within the donor and funding rules that we live in, right? If it's not, being open about that and building in ways that accommodate that to the best extent possible. To redirect or reshape tools across different contexts. And for the communities to initiate changes and not just react to what has already been decided with those of us who hold more power. Again, the Safe AI module has multiple parts, but once it is released, I do think the work that we've done around community in the loop and community participation really speaks to the themes that we are speaking here on this panel. Okay. That's it from me. Thank you very much.